The pilot was conducting an IFR flight in a twin-engine Beechcraft Baron with 5 passengers on board. During a GPS approach into the destination airport, both engines lost total power within 10 seconds of each other. MzeroA Online Ground School members, Jason here. Welcome into the 4th and final part of our series. Really not the final part of our series. We've got that big live stream coming up here soon where we're giving away that survival kit like we mentioned as well. If you're not entered to win, MzeroAcontest.com. We're going to give that away on that live stream. We'll be doing an accident analysis live there as well. So looking forward to being live with you all. Been loving this year of 2-3 Mike Zulu. Just finding fun ways to continue to share and give back to you all who've given so much back to us. Now, I open every one of these in this series the same way, but it still rings so true. I don't like talking about accidents. Why do we though? Well, 2 things. I believe we would do the pilots, and there are fatalities in this accident here today. I believe we do them a disservice if we just brushed under the rug, made it a statistic, and move on. I think the right thing to do is put ourselves in their shoes and learn everything we can from those pilots. I think that's truly the most beneficial thing that we can do to try to extract some good from all of this here. And that's what we're really going to do here today. What can we learn from this? I've been loving, by the way, reading your comments, so please stay engaged in the comment section down below. It really means the absolute world to us. So as we opened up, we're flying a Beechcraft Baron, we're on the GPS approach at our destination, and then both engines quit within 10 seconds of each other. Well, the NTSB report continues. The left engine regained near full power about 40 seconds later, which it maintained until the end of the recorded data. As the pilot continued the approach, he didn't ensure the flaps were up or feather the propeller of the inoperative right engine, which is contrary to the airplane's manufacturer's other emergency procedures, right? You lose an engine, especially in a multi-engine airplane, you need to clean up and feather that airplane quickly. My multi-engine pilots know that. So as the airplane's descending with the right engine inoperative, we're getting now below the cloud ceilings, which are at 500 feet AGL. Its flight path actually levels out, but the airspeed decreases below the minimum controllable airspeed for single engine operations. We know that as VMC. So the airplane continued flight below this VMC speed with an unfeathered propeller of that inoperative right engine. The left engine at near full power, and the airplane's aft center of gravity, well, what happens in that case? It resulted in the right wing turning, right? You've got all that thrust on the left wing, a dead right engine, you've got a bad center of gravity, and that good engine will actually twist you up and over into a spin and all the way into ground impact. What happened here? Now, obviously this equates to a loss of control because of an inoperative engine. And multi-engine pilots, you know this. I always jokingly say, your multi-engine training is all done on one engine. The majority of your 10, 15 hours you're going to get earning a multi-engine add-on is going to be done on one engine because of accidents just like this. But what caused the engine failure? Oftentimes we just look at this and go, oh, it's a VMC roll, and we add it to the stats. However, yes, a VMC roll ultimately caused the accident, but what caused the engine failure? You see, the pilot's filed flight plan indicated a minimum fuel load required of 58 gallons, although this didn't account for the instrument approach and flying to alternate airports. But the pilot's flight planning log, which was retrieved, only had 50 or 54 gallons of fuel on board, is what the pilot said in his fuel log before this flight. Thus, based solely on the pilot's logs, these were filed in the flight plan, there was insufficient fuel on board to even embark on the flight. Now, I believe this is because the airplane, right, was heavily loaded. A pilot plus 5 passengers. This is a Beechcraft Baron, a 6-passenger aircraft, and that means this airplane was full. So the airplane was beyond its maximum gross weight, even with just 50 gallons of fuel on board. It's likely the pilot said, I'm already overweight. I don't want to add any more weight, and left without the necessary fuel. So the decision to depart the accident flight without the adequate fuel on board, the NTSB said, their words, not mine, showed poor judgment. By the way, this is an airline transport pilot, an ATP, with 5,600 total hours, 2,400 hours in a Beechcraft Baron. So just something to really keep in mind. And again, Beechcraft Baron, 5 passengers and a pilot, you're over max weight. Now it's interesting, at the home airport, they had surveillance camera footage. 8 days ago, they saw the pilot where he thought he was topped off, and they have the phone records too. But they never actually made it out there to top him off fuel-wise. So when he put in his manual input was actually wrong. So he was just trusting his fuel gauges. Who knows what I mean when I say you cannot trust fuel gauges? You've got to visually check the tanks. He trusted his gauges and his engine monitoring, but he misprogrammed the engine monitoring based on fuel that really wasn't there. The day of the accident, the surveillance cameras noted and showed he went out, pre-flighted, checked the left wing fuel, peeked in the cap, but never sumped and never looked at the right wing tank, which would have given him all the indications that he didn't have the fuel that he needed. You see, this is why, now, in addition to, we don't rush a pre-flight. We treat everything, and I just want to share an interesting story. I was at a flight school many, many months ago, and was just sitting there, and some kids came over to say hi and talk while this gentleman was waiting for his flight lesson. And the airplane came back in, and I said, all right, it looks like your airplane's back. Have a safe flight. You probably need to get started pre-flight. I'll let you go pre-flight. I won't distract you. Because we were just talking for 15 minutes while I was waiting for the plane to come back in. And he said these words. He said, oh, it just came back in. I don't need a pre-flight. And sometimes as an aviator, you have a spirit of boldness, I call it, and use that spirit of boldness. And I just politely said, you know what? I understand what you're saying. However, you don't know if that person before you just had a real bad landing and flat spotted a tire or bent some metal or whatever it is. I would treat it like that airplane hasn't been flying. I know it's tough to check oil and that sort of stuff, but you don't know what just happened during that last flight lesson there. Never assume because the airplane got there, it's going to get to where it's going next. So little off topic there as well, but you got to slow down and pre-flight these airplanes. This is why last month we also talked so much about the 3-hour rule in our flight plan series. Meaning, if you haven't watched that video, 3-hour rule, and perhaps we can link to it down below as well. In the 3-hour rule, from the moment I say clear prop and start that airplane, I start a timer. From the moment the line personnel brings me in and says shut down, that time better not exceed 3 hours. So realistically, I'm planning 2.5-hour legs. It's for fuel. It's also for the bladder and food and water and everything else with it. Another big part to this accident, and a 3-hour rule would have saved many lives there. A better pre-flight would have saved many lives. So would have knowing our procedures, like feathering the prop. I know that sounds small, but this still was a VMC roll that ultimately caused the accident here. Many links in the chain though. It sounds small, but it would have decreased the drag and thus improved thrust he was creating on the remaining engine here. And I know that remaining engine was just running on fumes. So you've got some weight issues when you've got one wing a little heavier than the other, an aft CG, all of these things. You've got to know your procedures. So what do we learn from this? You got to pre-flight. You got to pre-flight like, not like the airplane just came in, like you've never seen this airplane before. You've got to adopt an hour rule, maybe the 3-hour rule or something for you on these long cross countries. My goal is to be landing with about 1.5 hours of fuel on board. Not about 1.5 hours. I want you to have 1.5 hours of fuel on board. So what is that for you in your airplane? And lastly, you've got to know your procedures. You've got to know the power of feathering that prop or know what is available to you in those emergency scenarios. One more time, MzeroAcontest.com. We're down to the wire to get signed up, so make sure you hop in there. If you're watching this video months later, maybe we're running a different contest. Still head over there and see what we're giving away now. Have a blessed, abundant, outstanding rest of your day. And most importantly, remember, a good pilot is always learning. Have a great day, everybody. I'll see you.